Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Lindsay Shannon. She is a psychic, medium, and Reiki energy healer. She uses these healing modalities to help people to find radical self acceptance and awaken to a greater sense of purpose in their lives. So, this is her bio. But as I mentioned to you off record, and a lot of listeners and viewers, they know that about me. I love asking the question of who you are in your own words. So, how would you describe what you are, Lindsay?
It's such a weighted question. I think,
Yeah.
you can go in any number of directions with that. But I think, I like to describe myself less in terms of labels, like, psychic, medium, and more in terms of output. So like, I think to me, I like to consider myself somebody that spreads awareness and love and joy and inspiration and hope, and just really identify with, what good I can put into the world, as opposed to what I can be labeled as.
Yes, I love that answer. It just resonates true to that deeper part of us that knows it's already free, so it can be anything. It can be open to anything.
Exactly.
When we tap into it, it's just so incredible because now we are not really attached. We are not identified with, especially body mind. That has been my experience. So it has that flavor of freedom, the answer you gave me there.
Yes.
I guess my follow-up question is, how did you get to have these understandings of yourself in life, get to be who you are today in this expression as of this moment? How did this happen?
Well, I think for quite a while growing up, I struggled with big emotions and just really being able to feel like collective energy and things like that. And I can say that now looking back, but I was depressed for a while because I think I took on a lot of just like the sadness that you feel, being out and about in your day to day. Everybody has their things that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuck with me for a while. And I think once I started opening up to these alternative, healing modalities, I started realizing that, hey, this really works for me, and how can I get more of this in my life? And it's for me, it's never about, I guess, bringing other people to it. It's more bringing more of it into my life and showing people how it's done good for me, and then hoping that they can, benefit from that too. So I think it's just kind of been this evolution of starting from somewhere that felt so hopeless and so upsetting, honestly, and really just kind of trying to like work my way out of that, and then ultimately wanting to share what I've done with the world in case that can, help other people do so, like do the same.
Yeah. How did this begin? When was that moment in time where that you knew that there's something beyond the logical mind, that there's this other reality that you could tap into it that could be helpful too?
It's hard to pinpoint an exact moment. However, there have been a couple moments in time where I feel like I was nudged in that direction. I do remember there being one day where I was driving, and somehow like the colors of my perception were just brighter one day. And then, a couple years later, I started feeling this sort of awareness in my third eye, and I felt like I was able to see more going on in my mind. And it kind of just, I think, sparked that initial curiosity of, jumping down the rabbit hole and really exploring what all, wanted to reveal itself.
Right. Do you see this reality that's more expansive, as you just described, as being part of the mind, or somehow outside of the mind, if there's such a thing as outside of the mind? To me, everything is one, connected. But do you see there's let's say there's a stream of awareness, of the third eye, as you said, someone seeing with a different, having a different perception of the world and yourself. Is that something that
Mhm.
happens within the mind, the logical mind, or outside of it? It's another part of being per se.
It's a good question. I do think that our minds help us in understanding, or maybe trying to like make logic for how what we're perceiving can benefit us, or how we
Right.
can make use of that in reality. But I do tend to feel like a lot of the awareness and the messages and things that kind of come through um, tend to kind of sit more in my heart, or come through my
Mm.
heart space. And I think I agree with you. I think everything is connected, and there's a purpose for your mind and for everything else. But for me, I do kind of tend to separate what the mind does for me and what my like expansive awareness does for me, and like where that I just kind of feel like they sort of they draw on different places, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's almost as if perhaps the logical mind is being formed by the dynamics of body, right? It has to do with the body
Right.
of the environment, the physical environment, what we call physical. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, the heart, as you call it, intuition, that might be being informed by a reality that's much more subtle. That's how I see it too. And it's soft, it's subtle, and has a lot to do with, I mean, if I can put it in this way, it's love. It's very loving. It's always looking to support itself, the wholeness of life. It's never trying to push anything away, but at the same time, even the way that it guides us to do, to act upon something, it's very gentle.
Yeah, I feel like it comes in with a calm sort of
Yeah.
confidence. There's no really questioning it. Whereas if you have some, I don't know, I tend to knock some stuff around in my mind quite a bit, from time to time. I think we all do as
Oh,
humans.
yeah.
But um yeah, that I tend to question more, whereas the stuff that comes through via intuition, yeah, like I don't question it as much. It just kind of makes more sense on some level.
Right, right. And that's my next question about intuition. Has been a challenge for me and so many people that I talk here. We kind of discuss that a lot, and people around my environment, my family, friends. How do we know when we are listening to the voice of intuition? Like, is there a certain way to go about it, or it's not a doubtful? I don't want to do the duality thing, the opposites, but how do we? How can we be, let's say, more confident when we hear that voice that we know is the voice to follow? To be guided by. And how do we learn to separate that from, belief systems and even traumatic triggers and from societal expectations and family? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's actually a huge focus of mine. I really like leading people to that. So thank you for asking, and I'm very open to hearing your insight on this as well. But from my perspective, usually my intuition is the first voice that comes in, whether that be through my gut or my head, my heart. It's kind of the first thing that dawns on me when I'm trying to either make a decision or consider something. And I've also heard that it's usually the first voice, not the loudest voice.
Mm.
So usually your intuition knows best, so it comes in first, and it'll tell you and leave it there. And then I've found that when other voices start to take over, that's kind of when like fear or anxiety or like nervousness tends to kick in. You kind of feel it like well up in your stomach or in your throat a little bit, or even getting stuck in your mind. I know like the like obsessive thoughts that you can kind of, it just runs free, and
Right.
um, I've found that even with difficult decisions, ones that require a lot of thought and consideration. Even making difficult decisions, if you're listening to your intuition, usually there's some sort of peace that comes with it, because there's just this level of understanding that this is what needs to happen right now. And I think that's a big part of it as well, just acknowledging that we don't have, our human understanding is limited, right? And time is relative. So if we trust that our timing, our perception of the timing might not always be, perfect, then we can also lean into that, that calm understanding as well. But I'm interested to hear, your 2 cents as well. I love hearing other people's views.
Oh, yeah. It feels like playful too, Lindsay, I have to say, because there's something about life itself that it comes across as freedom. So being free to just express this, which we call life itself, in any way. So it's not really a judgmental, it will never judge you. It will never try to punish you for anything, the
Yeah.
choices that we make. But it, of course, is always guiding us to suffer less. I guess that's what it is, right? From the perspective of body mind, to
Yeah.
ease unnecessary suffering.
I think sometimes it nudges us in some uncomfortable directions, just because our
Yeah.
mind is telling us, like, don't leave that job, it makes good money, or whatever the example is. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think ultimately the goal is, to achieve a deeper sense of peace and happiness and harmony.
Yes, right. It really, really comes across that way, that part of us that we call intuition or the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do speak of self-acceptance. You actually say radical
Mhm.
self-acceptance. What do you mean
Yes.
by that?
So really, I just mean being open to all parts of yourself, and being open to sharing all parts of yourself with others. Because, and I mean, I can kind of go into it a little bit. I feel like this comes from a personal experience of mine. Just being so into all of this alternative, I'll say, healing modalities. It's not quite mainstream. And I think some people don't understand it or fear it. And, I've honestly encountered some people that try to convince me against it. So I definitely kept that part of me hidden for quite a while, I think, from
Mm,
like family, even, just out of fear of judgment, or like worry that, I wasn't fully here in reality. And I don't know. I think the more that I embrace it myself, the more I'm comfortable sharing it with others, and the less I worry about um, what their perception of me is, because I know where I'm coming
mm,
from,
yeah.
and I can help people with it. And I just think, kind of going back to our point about intuition, I just think leading people to their own intuition will ultimately lead to, like, them to more peace. And
Mm,
that's really all I
yeah.
want, is to just help people. Um, so I just want to share, like, this sense of freedom that I've gained from the self-acceptance piece of it.
Yes. What is if your life had one purpose, what would that be?
You know, I would like to think that if life wanted anything for all of
Mm,
us, it would be to experience as much as we could,
yeah.
in any way you want to think about it. Like adventure and rest, um, you know, socializing and seclusion, kind of really exploring all parts of the spectrums of life, and just kind of being exposed to different things, in the name of growth, I would say.
Yeah. So that also resonates with me, just being open to the
Mhm.
adventure, right, of life.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
it comes to growth, that's an interesting concept too, because some people they call it evolution,
Mm.
evolving, growing. So, what's your vision of that? Once we get to that placeless place of being evolved, per se, what would that look like from your perspective, Lindsay?
I don't know if I come from a place of believing in an end goal.
Mm,
Um, I think, there's a bunch of sayings out there, like it's not the end, it's the journey or whatever. But and it does sound cheesy, but I do think that there is a lot of truth in that, and that
Mm,
if we have an end goal in mind, that there's the potential to kind of like limit ourselves if we get to somewhere and we're like, okay, I'm done now, like I'm good. We kind of leave some opportunities on the table, and as far as I'm concerned. So
right.
I would say it's less about an end goal and more about being happy doing what you're doing in the moment. And that doesn't always have to be growing. It can be learning to relax or learning to rest and support your mind and body and spirit.
It's one that resonates with me too, right? I don't see anything as a destination. I think I'm more interested in freedom. That has to do with
Mm-hmm.
being fully human too,
Yeah.
fully divine, fully human. I have heard it that way before from one of my guests. Really,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that made sense to me. Yeah, just being whole here now. So there's no, this is my destination. This is my journey and my destination. So
Right.
in a way, you probably heard that before too. You are what you're looking for exactly. So
Yeah.
this is it. There's nothing else really. I know for some people it sounds like depressing in a way. Oh, because it seems like the mind always wants to be somewhere. Is it the past, future?
Right.
Wants to get somewhere and stay there. It's almost like it's looking for security. A place to live, a home. And I have
Mm-hmm.
heard that way before some spiritual seekers and spiritual teachers just say that we are walking each other home, that we are looking for home. How do you see this concept of home? Do you see it in the same way that I do, being here now with being fully human and divine, or something else?
I do. I think, yeah, like the sense of home, feeling safe and secure, and um yeah, kind of like you're not reaching for anything else
Mm,
beyond what you have.
yeah,
Um, and I do think, yeah, like we are walking each other home, or we're helping to anyway. If you feel called to be doing that, but I definitely think we have a lot to learn from other people in that way. Um, and yeah, I do
yeah,
think that home is kind of a state of being.
yeah. When it comes to truth, do you ever use that word? I'm searching for truth, or I have found the truth.
I don't. Admittedly, I do have, I think, a little bit of like religious wounding, just from how I was raised and how I grew up. And I think that's,
Yeah,
this idea of freedom keeps coming up, right? Like wanting to feel free to like
yeah,
explore and be your own self. And I think that if we lean too much on this idea of a concrete truth, then again, it's a little bit limiting, and it kind of puts us in a box of searching for something that is outside of ourselves, because
hmm,
everybody can kind of have their own truth, and their own perception. And when you take this idea and put it outside of people, it kind of makes it a little bit unattainable. So
hmm,
I don't tend to use the word, I guess maybe in the in the typical way. Um, but I do like this idea of coming around to your own truth and like being honest with yourself.
it takes courage, right, Lindsay, to be as open. I mean, to be open in general, to be
Yes.
genuine, and I love that about humans because that shows to me that they are tapping into something deeper, about themselves. That's okay to be open. It's okay to be innocent. It's okay to be pure because that's your essence anyway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the main topic, which we haven't yet. But before that, gosh, I have so many questions. Way too many questions around here. Yeah, talk to me about. I love your website. It's so beautiful. I mean, everything
Thank
about
you.
it. I just went on and on and on. Last night I was looking at it. It's just so well, presented, and it
Thank
clear.
you.
It's so clear in so many ways. So, what's the process when if somebody wants to work with you? Do you prepare them ahead of time? I would love to know more about the process.
Yeah, it depends on what people come to me for. So I do one-on-one readings, either psychic readings or mediumship, or kind of like a blended version of both. And usually I do have them sign up, and ahead of time they'll get a couple, like my 2 cents of just like, if you're looking for tips on how to prepare, I just kind of advise to like start saying little prayers to the ones you want to come through and speak to, or just kind of, to your point, like meditate, get with yourself and kind of tune into what's been on your heart. So then that makes it easier for us to open that connection.
Right.
And then, with the mentorship, I do a little bit of a screening process, but this is more open-ended, if you will. So, people come to me with different goals in mind. And really, I format their program into however it makes sense for them, however I can support them. Some people prefer Reiki and some people prefer the readings. It just depends. So I know that's not super concrete, but I feel like everybody's different and has different needs, especially, as time goes on. So I like to honor that and really work with them based on where they're coming to me from.
Yes. Yeah. I love that too. The openness again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just being present with what is present.
Absolutely.
And so with that, because now it's a good time to mention about your offering. So it's intuitive email readings, mediumship readings, psychic readings, distance Reiki energy healing. And you also offer a workshop, Reiki Energy Circle, mentorship, as you mentioned, breakthrough session, free clarity call, and also the program. You have a program called Spiritual Tune Up. That's an
I
8
do.
weeks of clarity, right? Confidence and intuitive connection. Did I miss anything? Yes, I did. You have also free guided meditation, which I'll have the link here on the podcast note. That will be here with the video.
Awesome.
So your website too, ineffablealchemy.com. That'll be here as well. So did I miss anything, Lindsay?
I don't think so. I think that's everything.
For those who don't know, what's the difference between psychic reading and mediumship reading and
Yeah.
intuitive reading? Are they all different?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of put them into two buckets. So the email reading, is kind of a blended version of the two, but mediumship is more so for people who are really looking to connect with loved ones that have passed. So I tune into spirits that have moved on in order to connect them and kind of bring through messages, and kind of facilitate some closure for people that maybe didn't have it, while their loved one was here. And then the psychic readings or the intuitive readings are more so for people that are looking for life guidance. And in these readings, I connect with, the energy of the universe, but more specifically, I tend to communicate with these beings or souls that I like to call spirit guides.
Yeah.
And or you can think of them as guardian angels. They're kind of these beings that are present with us and are very familiar with our life situation and want the best for us. So I kind of open myself up to, communicate with them in order to give people guidance, and direction and some clarity just in different areas of their day-to-day life. Yeah, did I miss anything? And then the intuitive reading is just kind of a blended version of the two, depending on what's needed and what comes through. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's one or the other. It just depends.
Right. So thank you for doing that, Lindsay. That's
Yeah.
beautiful, to be open to it, because I know also it takes a lot of you. It's energetic work too. So it takes commitment and dedication. It's not something that we can just decide to do and just do it, at any time. I know you prepare for it. It's something that it's almost like takes, from what I see, living a spiritual life, really putting that into the practice, every day. Does it? I have heard that before. Does it?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty passionate about people that work in the healing and energetics, spiritual space, not being reckless with their influence.
Right.
I'd try very hard to portray this, my intention of really wanting to help and not influence
Mm,
or lead anyone
yeah.
astray. I really want them to be able to tap into their own wisdom or truth, as you call it, so that I'm not up here on a pedestal like, hey, here's what you need to do, because I think, that gets into some dicey territory. But yeah, living by example, hopefully.
Right. There's something about your bio that caught my attention when so many things did. You say, my spiritual awakening was preceded by a lot of struggle and overcoming things like depression, anxiety, self doubt, eating disorders, loss, and heartbreak, just to name a few. So it's not easy to awaken, to really become spiritually aware. You see, this is very important for, I think, for all of us to understand that it's not an easy process, although spirituality sounds very light, even healing, but it takes work, doesn't it, Lindsay?
Yeah.
It's not like we will become spiritual or healed by just wishing so. It seems like it takes suffering. It really does, or pain. It has been my case too. Do
Really.
you feel like for some people it's easier, the process of awakening or becoming healed, or for all of us it's the same?
In my experience, the more struggle you have, the more depth
Mm,
that's created. And I think the more understanding that comes from that. Not to say that there's any, one, like anybody's journey is better than the other,
right.
but I have noticed that, it is hard to relate to certain people sometimes if they haven't had some level of struggle that is similar to mine. Um, so I do think that for some, I wouldn't say maybe easier, it's just different, like either a different journey to go through or a different awakening to happen, just in different realms or like different
Mm,
perspectives of this life. People are focused on different things. And I think it just depends on the person.
yeah. You did talk about, I think on your website, you mentioned about following the heart, something that, doing something that you love to do, and
Mhm.
just being faithful, being true to that. That's another path that's not easy too, because we have to give up some of the things that we, in a way, structures that we have built. So it has been my case too, just letting go of so many things in people, in places, to find the truth.
Yeah.
What is the truth about this? So it takes courage. It really does, and being open. And then I wonder why so many of us don't. For some of us, it happens, and for some of us, it doesn't. I know people who are pretty much losing the body; they will soon. They're still stuck with, limiting beliefs. They are suffering so much unnecessarily. How do you make sense of that, Lindsay?
I think part of it is conditioning, like generational
Mm,
expectations and things like that. But I do
yeah.
think that to some extent, like willingness to trust is also a spectrum. So some people, that's maybe not as innate in them, and they feel more comfortable, leaning on those structures that you mentioned and kind of relying on the familiar. Whereas I think there are some people that it comes more naturally to them to seek out newness or kind of just trust that if things
Yeah.
happen or unfold differently, that it'll still be okay, and I think we all get, obviously you get different things out of different experiences by making different decisions. So I would just say it's kind of dependent on nature and nurture a little bit.
Yeah, both, right. That's
Yeah.
true. They're always walking side by side. So true.
Hmm.
I love your wisdom. That comes with that, of course, the territory of spirituality. That's what I see more often than
Thank
not.
you.
So I know you mentioned that religion, and that's very different. I know the path that I have, Vedanta, is Advaita Vedanta. It is a religion, but it's I take only the knowledge, so the religious part I don't really. That
Hmm.
doesn't interest me at all, because
Yeah.
it has had to do with rules, those dogmas. But it's just fascinating to study that. I mean, to know that we are not what we think we are. So the mind kind of is an interesting tool, but it can never guide us really to what we are really looking for, which is to be peaceful, to have this it's harmony and this feeling of connectedness. It seems like we're all looking for that. And
Yeah.
it's very clear to me because I see a lot of people going for relationships. That's what they are trying to feel connected. But then, well, I think that's a path too. It has been mine, but it's one that we have to be aware of, that it's not really out there. That connectedness that we are speaking about here, it goes beyond human connection even.
Right.
So from my perspective,
Yeah.
do you want to make a comment on that, Lindsay?
No, I mean, I think that was very well said. I do think that religion has some great things to offer, as like especially just the fact that religions have come from all over the world. Obviously, people, like you said, are looking for connection. There is some good in that. It's really just my own experience that I think I trusted blindly,
Mm,
and that it was in that context, and I think it was just a learning experience. So
mm. Yes, yeah, yeah. You see, that's why I don't. Let's say I don't really subscribe to the idea of believing in anything or
sure.
being faithful or even trusting anything. It's all about knowing. I want to know. I wanted to
Mhm.
experience. I wanted to just go as deep as I can to really find out the truth, which is
Yeah.
basically what's real and what's not real.
Yeah. Trust you.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Trusting something here to do that work. Yes. So let's talk. Gosh, I could talk to you forever off the
Likewise.
notes, but let me go back because the title of this episode it's exactly what the 5 reasons, but I didn't title that way. I think I said it's the open secret to a meaningful life. Doing something new before you're ready. So,
Mhm.
5 reasons to try something new before you feel ready. What inspired you? I know this was an article that you wrote that was published on the tinybuddha.com.
Mhm.
What inspired you to write this article?
Um, just personal experience. I think it was obviously initiated by my awakening, but I lived in Atlanta for a while, a big city, and um, I just kind of found myself being a little bogged down energetically, like spiritually. And then, with this awakening came a lot of excitement and wanting to experience new things. So I kind of just like picked up my life and moved across the country by myself. And I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing, but it ended up being a beautiful experience. And I think it's just kind of become so woven into my being now that I really enjoy sharing that with other people, and in the hopes that they can put some faith in themselves and their ability to do hard things or do new things, because the rewards are just so,
Mm,
you can't even imagine them, before you make these decisions, but then afterwards, I it just creates this immense sense of gratitude, and it only makes you want to do more. um,
yeah.
so I just find it very inspiring.
Yes, and it is being open to possibilities, right? Wow, that you see that takes courage and trust, as you said, faith in yourself. Yeah. And you're so
Yeah.
young. I love that, though, that young people can do that instead of feeling stuck, right? Not knowing what to
Right.
do. Just do something new that you never did before.
Yeah.
Of course, not something dangerous. People tend to do that too.
Right. Don't be reckless.
Yeah, right. So, in that article, you say things like, "Ready isn't a state of being; it's a state of mind." That resonated with me. So true. And then you say, "Our heart knows what is right before our mind does." The unknown can be intimidating. I think you said something else. I'm paraphrasing you here. You said more. But if you choose to embrace it, it can open up to much, much growth, or to much more. So true. And I love the concept of the heart, because it goes back to intuition. They are one and the same, my Lindsay, in a
Yeah.
way. I do feel that they are very much connected. So the 5 reasons you say it helps you grow your faith in yourself, as you said. You create a new baseline of bravery. Oh, it's funny. I didn't read that before. I mean, just before saying that now, but yeah, it keeps coming back to my courage, and it's not really because fear. It's always there. I don't think we
Yeah.
can become fearless, right, Lindsay?
Right.
It's just more courageous, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's all we need to work on courage.
Yeah.
And then you say you find new ways to do things, you find more fulfillment, and you become unstoppable. So that's another beautiful message, too. You become unstoppable. What would you add to it? I know we didn't go one by one, but is there one that you would like to emphasize more than the other when it comes to the 5 reasons?
I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason, like the baseline of bravery kind of hit me one day, and I just thought like the wording was so interesting. You know how like sometimes ideas just kind of come in. Um it because I feel like it creates this sort of visual like of, something you can stand on. And when you do something, it's almost like you're raising the bar, so to speak, but it's also like a baseline, it's something that like you can stand on it, you're above it now, and like you can just keep moving up and up and up. I'm just kind of I'm a visual person, so I think it helps to have something that I can like keep in my mind's eye, as like a point of focus.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm very careful around is desire, because I have learned, from also intuitively, this message keeps coming to me over and over again about, if I wish one thing, I might get it, but I also might get the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
So for a time, I might get what I'm looking for. In a sense, it could be anything that brings pleasure, but then pain is the opposite of that. So
Right.
because life is about balance and always going back into harmony when it comes to the natural world, and we are part of that. So I don't know if that happened to you, but it has been an interesting experience to just kind of go through it. Coming from desire and then less desire, much less
Yeah.
now.
I know what you mean. It's almost like your desire kind of like just shifts over time for different things. And I
Yeah.
think I've always, like to some extent, I've always been a more experience driven person. Like even younger, I would have rather gone to see like music, like gone to a
Mm,
concert than like a nice dinner. Kind of to your point, like it's great to indulge sometimes and be there for yourself and like allow yourself to have nice things, but as far as making it a lifestyle or a constant, yeah, it does kind of lose its luster a little bit once you find a more important reason for things.
it's almost like the feeling that there's nothing missing. There's nothing
Yeah.
that can be added to this, which I have found, which is spiritual awakening, they call it, or spiritual realization.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting balance, right? Because we don't really lose the interest, for loving and all that. Of course, I love people, I love my family, but there's less attachment. It's almost as to the point of if they die, it's because I know the nature of this reality, so it's easier to kind of just let it go. I think it's what it is. It's something in me keeps letting go of anything that otherwise it would attach to. So it
Yeah.
seems like the mind has been, it is my practice to train the mind to kind of follow more of the universal energies and universal intelligence, and less personal with everything. But like this conversation with you, it feels very much universal. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel personal, and
Yeah,
it's
I
expensive.
agree.
It feels free. So thank you for being open to it.
Yeah, thank
Thank you.
you.
So we're almost at the end. Would you like to add anything, Lindsay, that I left unsaid, that you left unsaid? Any questions that I didn't ask?
Oh man, put me on the spot. I don't think so. I mean, I really do feel like we covered a lot of great ground, and I so appreciate you having me. You've been a beautiful host, and I hope to keep in touch and have future conversations like
Yes, I
this.
would love that too. Yeah, thank you. And before we say goodbye, I'll ask you this question that I usually ask everyone, though, but I have not asked lately for some reason. I'll ask you,
Okay.
what 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they die, before they lose the body?
Good question. I definitely think spending time in nature is important. So, like, they say the little things like watch sunrises, experience that, take it in. Value relationships that are good for you. And that doesn't have to be a lot of them, quality over quantity. I think we learn a lot through relationships and other people and just their experiences by listening. And then a third one, I'm kind of stuck, but I think what came to mind was just learning to be good to yourself, because that will open you up to so many great experiences, physically and otherwise.
So true. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Lindsay, for
Thank
sharing
you.
timeless wisdom, for being open to life to this point that you are, to this extent. It's really beautiful to see, and for helping others, to guide others to find peace. That's really, if there is one purpose to this life, this will be, as you said earlier, to me that this will be the highest one, to help others once we have found
Yeah.
what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So thank you again for your presence, and we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch again.
Great.
Bye for
Thank
now.
you so much.
Thank you.